Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you all here. We have a packed chamber for a change. Annual Council, 18th of May 2022. So we will get straight into the agenda with the fire evacuation. Now, a fire alarm test is not expected tonight. So if you hear the alarm, it is for real, but please remain calm. Take the emergency exits, you can see at the back there and at the front. If anybody needs assistance, please raise your hand and myself and officers will assist you. The meeting point, the rallying point is across the road outside of Virgin Money, formerly the Yorkshire Bank. Tonight's proceedings are being live streamed and they will also be recorded for future broadcasts on the Council's YouTube channel. So, on to item 2 and the election of a new mayor. Can I ask for nominations? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to nominate Councillor Jeff Clark for the position of Chairman of the Council to be styled Mayor for the ensuing municipal year. In doing so, I'm not only proposing a tremendous councillor for over 23 years, but also, I'm pleased to say, my friend outside of this chamber too. And I was thinking back and I remembered that actually I've known Jeff for over 18 years, although I know there are a number of faces here who have known him for far longer than I. And we all have our individual stories to tell, but as these proceedings are being live streamed, and I'm aware that Mr. Mayor-elect is watching from the parlour, he has placed a ban on me mentioning some of the stories. However, if people would like to know the story about him having been charged £40 for a chicken and chips, and then his prompt refusal so to pay, then please see me afterwards, and I will be more than delighted to inform them of how he reacted to that bill. I suppose his reaction comes partly from his background as a market trader, always one to be the affable businessman out there selling the bananas and apples, whether it be rain or shine. I can see his family here today who have also shared in those trials and tribulations. And his track record of representation, Mr. Mayor, actually dates back to the 1980s when he went on to the old Market Traders Committee. And he rose through the ranks from both a secretary onto chairman, representing various market traders over the years. And indeed, he went on to serve as the national president of the National Association of the British Market Authorities. Quite a high esteem indeed. And it is quite true to say he literally does know his onions. But his track record of representation goes much deeper than that. I suppose you could even say it runs in the blood. Looking back through the old records of the old Nuneaton Borough Council, it is interesting to note that from 1949 to 1951, his grandfather actually served as mayor of the old Nuneaton Borough Council, Alderman Chamberlain. And from what Jeff leads me to believe, his grandfather was a staunch trade unionist, something which I don't think Jeff has in common with his grandfather. But he tells me that when he was first elected to Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council in 1999, the late Bill Olner came up to him and started reminiscing with Jeff about his grandfather and said, "Shame you're on the wrong side, Jeff, but welcome to the council." But as I said, he was first elected in 1999 and has served 23 years as a councillor, both on the borough and on the county council as it happens. And he has had the privilege and honour of serving as deputy leader of this authority back in 2008 to 9 and was the then cabinet member for health and environment. And then he went on to chair the Environment Overview and Scrutiny Panel in 2009 to 2010. In 2010, he also joined the County Council, and he has served in various cabinet positions over the years, including planning and transport. I think his biggest achievement that he is most proud of is the bridge on Hinckley Road, the one which we all know that when it used to get struck by a lorry, would snarl up Nuneaton for hours. And if anything, he regards that as one of his greatest achievements. And I have to say, I wasn't best pleased when he called me the night before one Saturday to say, "Chris, I'm having this done. I'm pleased to see it getting done. I want to get some photos. Will you come and pick me up at 9 o'clock? Bearing in mind this was a Saturday morning he was trying to get me up, and those who know me well will know 9 o'clock on a Saturday isn't my best time. I said, yes, I'll come along and take your photos. And he was as happy as a lad in a sandbox. He got his high-vis on, got his hard hat on. And I have to say, the resulting pictures of him smiling gleefully at this achievement of over 20 years' work is something to behold. And we do, myself and Councillor Croft in particular, we do give him a bit of stick over that, because we do like to pull that picture out every now and then just to show how happy Jeff can actually be. He is, of course, chair of an OSP, but at County Council, but his roots and his heart are truly here in Nuneaton and Bedworth, Mr. Mayor. He is a man from the area. He has family from Bedworth, and he also has family from Nuneaton. And in all my dealings with him over the past 18 years, every single thing he has done has been to further and better the lives of the people in Nuneaton and Bedworth. You may have had disagreements with him, and I've had disagreements with him too. But it has always been from a place of passion and dedication for this borough. And I can think of no one more deserving, Mr. Mayor, than Jeff Clark to be our mayor for the next municipal year. I so move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. I would like to second that nomination from the chair, not just as Councillor Clark's ward colleague in St Nicholas, but also because Jeff Clark is my friend, a dear friend, and he's been a mentor to me, certainly in my political life. As you know, I got first elected and involved in politics really in 2014, and that's largely down to Jeff and Alderman Carr. And yeah, both been mentors, and Jeff particularly in the political sphere. So I don't think I can add anything to what Councillor Wilson has already so eloquently said, other than it is a privilege, and I'm very proud to second the nomination. Are there any other nominations for chairman for the next municipal year styled mayor? No. In that case then, I don't even think we need a show of hands. No. I hereby declare that Councillor Jeff Clark has been selected as chair of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, styled mayor for the next municipal year. There will be a short break, bear with us while we go and fetch the new mayor, and he can take over proceedings, but thank you all.
Please feel free to sit down, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. Please be seated. Yes. I believe there's some procedural issues that we need to deal with first, but I will make a speech shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask you, are you willing to sign the Declaration of Acceptance of Office?
Most certainly. You can read it first. Declaration of Acceptance of Office. Oops. Working, that's it. Declaration of Acceptance of Office. I, Jeffrey Stephen Clark, have been elected to the office of Mayor of the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council. I therefore declare that I will take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and abilities. As I say, sign that. The declaration is made before yourself, and you need to cover that. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So nice to see all of you here this evening, and absolutely overwhelmed. I'd like to welcome you all, the Borough Aldermen and older women, the freemen, free women, and the councillors, ladies and gentlemen, to Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council's annual general meeting and mayor making of the council for 2022. It really is good to be back in the town hall where we can all meet together again. Following the last couple of years where most people across the borough have been in one way impacted by the pandemic. And I would like to put on record at this point my thanks to all of our emergency services, critical workers, volunteers for the tremendous way that they have worked together to help our borough get through this unprecedented period. I'm extremely honoured and pleased to be taking on the role of Mayor, following in the footsteps of my grandfather, as was mentioned, Alderman Bob Chamberlain, who held the office for 2 years in 1949 and 1951. I'm particularly pleased to be called to serve in this year of celebration of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee. And I will, wherever possible, endeavour to attend as many events and street parties as I can. I know that in addition to our planned parties in the park in Nuneaton, Bedworth and Bulkington, there are already some 30 or more events already planned across Nuneaton and Bedworth that are currently being organised by many various groups across all areas to celebrate the Queen's 70 glorious years as our monarch. They will have my support, and I believe the support of all members. I know that some of you may have wondered why I became involved in politics, although a brief outline has already been given. It did start at an early age. I had used to go with my brother. We used to go and pick the voters up from the homes to take them to vote. So I can remember back in the day, you know, that far back, the need to get people involved and engaged. The reason I wanted to be involved in politics, I like to see everyone treated fairly. I've tried to live by this principle throughout, throughout my public life. Firstly, in my roles of representing the traders on the Nuneaton market and as member of the National Market Traders Federation and also the National Association of British Market Authorities. Then, as a Borough Councillor, and more latterly as a County Councillor and Borough Councillor for St Nicholas and the Nuneaton East Division. However, much of this would not have happened but for one man who first encouraged me to become a councillor. I'm pleased to say that person is here tonight. He is Alderman Don Jakes, British Empire Medal. And I'm really pleased that you were able to attend tonight's ceremony. Thank you, Don. Nuneaton is and always has been my home. I've tried to serve the people who live here in one way or another for many years, and I hope that everyone feels that I've done the best I can. Sorry, I've just lost a piece of paper there. That's it. I have deep roots, as has been mentioned, in the borough, with family originating in Bedworth, or Bedworth, depending on how you want to say it. I'm happy either way, but it's part of the borough and I'm part of the borough. As Mayor, I hope to see the borough continue to grow and improve its opportunities to provide jobs, safe houses for our people, so that they feel that they have a bright future and can make their homes here for many years to come. We now have opportunities in this borough that we have dreamed about for decades. I'm looking forward to seeing our Transforming Nuneaton project begin to take shape and the emerging Transforming Bedworth programme become a reality. Driven by the vision, ambition and aspiration of our new generation of young local councillors. Throughout my term of civic year, I know there are two stars that I will always steer by, this borough will always steer by, the greatness of the borough and the unity of its people. Finally, I would like to thank Sarah, my daughter, for agreeing to be my mayoress this year, and thank you to my family, friends and colleagues for their continued support over many years. I wouldn't have been able to do this without your help, and I hope that I will live up to the trust you have put in me. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. One of my first duties is to welcome the new members of this authority, and we have new members from across the political divides. So great to see you all here, and I hope you have a good time, and I'm sure you'll be able to contribute to the borough's development as we move forward. Thank you for coming and being elected. So we then move on to the agenda proper, I believe. There is a vote of thanks to the outgoing mayor, I believe. And I've got the actual wording for that somewhere. Just give me a moment, please. We'll get that. That's it, right. Can't see the thing. Right. Councillor Tromans, it is noted that, as outgoing mayor, that the best thanks of this council be tendered to Councillor Tromans and his consort, Mandy Tromans, for their able and courteous manner in which they have fulfilled the duties of mayor and consort during the past municipal year. I do thank you for that. It's customary also for the outgoing mayor to, at this point, make his... Oops. Oh. Being advised. We need a proposal and a seconder that's accepted. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to move the vote of thanks to Councillors Rob and Mandy Tromans for the able and courteous manner in which they conducted themselves over the previous municipal year. And just as a short speech, I think it is fair to say they are the only mayor of this borough who has ever been installed in a basketball court, thanks to the trials and tribulations of COVID, and when we were just emerging from the pandemic at the time that Rob and Mandy took on their roles. And whilst it was a very strange start to their mayoral year, they have done so with aplomb. They have restored the dignity to the office of which had been lacking, and actually showed how a council should be run. And also, I know that you have enjoyed vastly supporting the charity of your choice, the Mare Evans Hospice. And I have to say that the ABBA tribute evening was a fantastic evening, raising lots of money. And we even got to see our new Mr. Mayor strut his stuff on the dance floor. So hopefully there'll be more of that to come. And I look forward to the grand total, Mr. Mayor, because I know it'll be going to a cause close to your heart.
Thank you, Councillor Tromans. Is that seconded? Sorry, Councillor Wilson. Seconded by.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second and echo the comments from Councillor Wilson and yourself, and just to extend my thanks to Rob and Mandy as well for everything they've done for the borough. You've been really great representatives, so thanks again for that.
Getting used to these microphones again, it's hard work. Councillor Tromans, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And may I be the first to congratulate you and welcome you to your place. May you have a great year ahead. Speaking of years, what a year. As Councillor Wilson said, it started in difficult circumstances. We were in COVID. We had to have a very cut-down version of this event over at the Jubilee Centre. Fitting that we should start the year in the Jubilee Centre and end it with the Jubilee. Not lost on me, that one. It's been a different mayoralty. The mayoralty, just because of COVID, obviously had been fairly dormant pretty much for the last period of time. And that's nobody's fault. That's entirely down to COVID and the lockdowns that we were in. Obviously, we had a change of control, and so there wasn't a direct handover. So we kind of had to make it a bit new and a bit different. And so we did it in a cut-down way. We focused on what we thought, Mandy and I thought, were the important things. So we did it without a separate bank account and committee, and we did away with a car and a lot of the other trappings to put the money into frontline services. And we said, what's really important? And the more we went around the borough, we realised, wow, all those people out there doing fantastic things in our borough, volunteering, giving literally thousands upon thousands of hours every month, every year to make our communities and our society stronger and better. Brilliant. We only scratched the surface, and we thanked hundreds of people, reinstated the borough badges that we gave out in a more formal way, recognised those and brought back with the support of the council and Councillor Wilson in particular, recognition of people, brought back the freemen and free women of the borough, also older men and older women. Brilliant. About time to recognise that civic pride is important, that people that do good in our borough and our community should be recognised and thanked. We know they don't do it for the thanks, but it's right that we thank them and hold them up as role models and as people that should be emulated. So that was a lot of what we did. I will keep it short to the thank yous to the people, to the charity that you've mentioned, Mare Evans Hospice. I've no idea what the final tally will be. It's looking like it's going to. We've got another event to come that got postponed, a race night at Ambleside. Please attend that. If it's half as much fun as the ABBA night, it'll be brilliant. But we reckon we should be comfortably over £10,000 or more, which, given the COVID start that we had for the first few months, I'm really pleased with, and so are the charity. I'd like to thank the officers of the council. I have to say, in particular, there's a few people: Lindsay, Kelly, Brent, and of course, our fantastic Mace Bearer, Dave Leach, without whom any mayor would be lost. He's been an absolute brick. I'd like to thank the porters as well. They've been absolute stars in helping us with all the things that we've arranged at the last minute, and every other officer at the council that's been so supportive of us, particularly at the museum and the other areas. So I'd also like to thank my colleagues. I can say, guys, you have all been stars this year. You really have. And it's been a pleasure to be mayor. It really has been. There's a couple of people I'd like to call out in particular. Chris. You know, I remember when there was just the three of us sitting there. We've come a long way, and a lot of that and the support that you've given us and what we've been able to bring back to this borough is thanks to you and your support. Jeff, you know, I've got to thank you as my deputy. You've been great, very supportive behind the scenes, and that's very much appreciated, and stepped in when Mandy and I got the dreaded COVID and held a function for us, and thank you again for that. And Lubs. Councillor Evacuation, thank you. You deputised for me, you stepped in when we couldn't be in three places at once for remembrance. So very much appreciated there. I also obviously, and very, very deeply want to thank Councillor Mandy Tromans for being my consort. Thank you. You've been an absolute star. And I'd also like to thank James, our son, because he's put up with a lot and has been so supportive and helpful. So thank you, James. There are a couple of things we've managed to achieve beyond the civic side of things and thanking people. One of them, and if I could ask Dave to just reach onto the Deputy Mayor's table, we have managed to get instated the Heroes Walk in Riversleigh Park. So what we had done was mapped all of the locations of the various remembrance items and things that are dedicated to the heroes of this borough, people that often gave their lives to keep us safe and free, and we only have to look around the world to see how important that is. There's a large map there that you saw, and then on the back of that, on another sheet that will go up in the wall in the museum and at the Heritage Centre, and smaller versions, leaflets to give out, which are just mini versions of that. There's all the details behind everybody and a picture of the actual monuments themselves and how to locate them. We also were determined to make sure that people that wanted to come back and really do something good for the borough and not let it just fade away because of COVID, charities and whatever, were supported. We were doing that with the borough. We started off, as we've heard, you know, in just a sports hall and couldn't do it properly, but we brought it back better, and it's fantastic tonight. And we did that with some other things as well. We wanted to support the Festival of Arts, and they've come back great, and they've been giving out some prizes there, and I know Jeff's got a load more to do. It's wonderful that people are getting back to normal now, and we really are leaving COVID behind us. The other thing we wanted to do is support a whole raft of other people, particularly artists. And Dave, if you wouldn't mind holding up the piece of art we had commissioned by local artist Claire Bottrell, been a very good local artist for many years. We said, look, do something of Nuneaton and Bedworth or Nuneaton or whatever you choose, but we want the essence of the borough. And what she decided to do was pick the essence of Nuneaton there, and you can see that there are a whole bunch of symbols of things that people really know and love about Nuneaton. There's a piece of work that she wrote to go with it that explains how she came up with the idea of the montage and all the great things about the borough. Mandy and I would like to present that original, a copy of which was auctioned off for several £100s for the charity, but we are giving the original to the borough collection tonight, along with the documentation that goes with that. We haven't forgotten the customary piece of silverware. I'm afraid the laser engraving's taken a little bit longer. It's not like some of the other silverware, as you'll see. This is a very practical thing, and hopefully somebody will explain that at the next council meeting when it's presented. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. I just needed to thank so many people tonight, and a final thanks to all of the residents who came out and supported us in so many ways with functions and activities. I would like to move a vote of thanks to the Deputy Mayor, Jeff Clark, for last year, and his consort, Sarah, his daughter, for all of their support and all of their hard work for last year. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tromans. I think we do need to formalise the vote of thanks. The best thanks of this council will be tendered to Councillor Tromans and his consort. As previously said, the courteous manner in which you've operated throughout the year and fulfilled your duties as Mayor and consort during the past municipal year. So a vote for that, please. If members in favour. Any against? Abstentions? That vote is carried. Thank you. And thank you again, Rob. We now turn over. Need to move to the election of Deputy Mayor. So, need to now seek appointments for Deputy Mayor. The Mayor asked for appointments Vice Chairman of the Council, style Deputy Mayor for the ensuing municipal year, and asked for nominations. Councillor Evans, I believe you wanted to make a nomination.
Mr. Mayor, could I start by congratulating you on your election this evening, and I wish you and the new Lady Mayoress, Sarah, all the best over the next 12 months with your charitable endeavours. And if you go to Bedworth and call it Bedworth, I don't think you'll have any problems. This evening, I would like to propose my ward colleague, Councillor Martin Walsh, to be the Vice Chairman of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, to be styled Deputy Mayor for the forthcoming municipal year. And the Slough ward, which I'm pleased to represent, and I'd like to thank my residents for voting me in for another term, has a long-standing history of presenting councillors to the mayoralty. And it's a tradition that I'm sure will come for many years in the future. I know it's convention not to mention any embarrassing stories about the Deputy Mayor, and I will be saving some of those stories for this time next year, but I didn't think it was appropriate to allow Councillor Walsh to escape the chamber without any stories this evening. So there's just a few points that I would like to make. First of all, perhaps probably just over probably about 13 months ago, I don't believe Councillor Walsh even expected to be a member of this authority. Now, we're all members of political parties and we all know how it works. Political parties select their candidates for wards in quite good space of time. And the Conservative candidate for the Slough ward decided to pull out on 2 days before nominations were due in. And now, if you think that I've got a red face now, you ought to see what that face was looking like then. I was in full panic mode. But I eventually had to be brought to the house of Damon and Anne Brown. Mrs. Brown had to calm me down. And Mrs. Brown said, "Fear not, I have somebody in mind." And that is when we come up with the idea that Martin Walsh would be a great councillor for the Slough ward. He is very much well respected in the ward, and I know that, having knocked hundreds of doors at this election. I know that he's dealt with lots of issues already in the last 12 months. And he already has a committed track record of public service in this borough. He has served as chair of governors at a number of local schools in Bedworth, so I don't think chairing meetings in 12 months' time is necessarily going to be difficult. I'm sure chairing meetings at schools with hundreds of parents and teachers was probably quite difficult. And also, he's been involved in scouting in Nuneaton and Bedworth, having been the leader of 4th Bedworth Scouts for many decades. So he does have a committed track record to public service in the borough. And as I'm sure you and the outgoing Mayor, Councillor Tromans, would agree, the mayoralty is very much a team effort. And I'm absolutely of the view that Councillor Walsh's wife, Sandra, who is here this evening, is really going to step up and support you and Sarah over the next 12 months as the Deputy Mayoress. So I formally propose Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Is that seconded? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations on acceding to the post of Mayor. I would be honoured, and it's a privilege to stand here and second the nomination of Councillor Martin Walsh as Deputy Mayor for the coming municipal year. I've known Martin for more than 25 years. He's a friend, he's a neighbour. We both come from other parts of the country. We both moved to Bedworth. We've both made Bedworth our home. Martin's an engineer by trade, and if anybody's ever seen any wardrobes or anything he's assembled, will know he's fastidious. All the screw heads have got to align perfectly, or it's not up to standard. Anyway, he moved to Bedworth when he married Sandra here, and they met through ballroom dancing, where they competed at the highest national level before becoming an item, settling down, moving to Bedworth, where they raised a family. And raising a family meant that they became involved in the things that their kids were involved with. So, as we've already heard, Martin became a school governor. He was involved in scouting. Organised things like trips to Poland, gang shows, that sort of thing. And that led to another common interest in the family of musical theatre. So with all of this background, I expect that Martin will be able to bring this to his time as Deputy Mayor and later Mayor. I expect him to be precise and measured, as you would expect from an engineer. Somebody who aims the highest standards, so we'll all be looking for straight A's when he's in charge, I'm sure. That given his scouting experience, well, he will be prepared for everything. And as regards his dancing background, this goes back before Strictly, but he will be strictly on time. And he will saunter through his engagements as Mayor. I'm also sure that he will deal with any dramas without making a song and dance of it. But in the event that he has to make a dance of it, I'm sure he'll be able to make a damn sight better job than any of the rest of us at it. So I wholeheartedly second his nomination as Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Are there any other nominations for Deputy Mayor, Deputy Chairman? See no other nominations. So, therefore, we don't need to take a vote. Congratulations, Councillor Walsh. You are duly elected. Just need to formalise that Councillor Walsh be appointed Vice Chairman of the Borough of Nuneaton and Bedworth Council to be styled Deputy Mayor for the ensuing municipal year. If you'd like to join me here and give us a hand, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Walsh, can I ask you if you are willing to sign the Declaration of Acceptance of Office?
I, Martin Walsh, having been elected as the office of Deputy Mayor of the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, declare that I take this office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Councillor Walsh, did you wish to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great privilege for me to be taken upon this role of a Vice Chair, Deputy Mayor for this coming year. And I would like to thank the support of all my councillors, in particular, obviously, my local ward councillor, Kyle, for proposing me, and Councillor Brown as well for seconding me. But I'm sure, as I know, the rest of the council members will give me full support, and I will duly give our Mayor full support in this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate your support. We now come to the point whereby we need to recognise our former outgoing mayor, and we'd like to bestow on you recognition of that position. If you'd just like to give me the recognised badges. And also, if the Mayoress would like to come forward as well to receive her badge. Councillor Tromans, I'd like to present you with the Mayor's, outgoing Mayor's recognition badge, and hopefully you'll wear it with all the civic pride that you've shown over the last 12 months. And thank you very much again for all the work that you've done. I've got also Mandy, really appreciate again all the work that you've done, and I hope you'll be with us many more years. We do have some other presentation, or is that later? That's later, okay. So a little bit more later on, but thank you again for all the... thank you. When these microphones are on, I'm afraid. So I might get caught out, but there you go. Right, so we now move on to business proper of the AGM, and I'll call for apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Sue Markham, who unfortunately is unwell. Are there any other apologies? I can't see many gaps tonight. No? Members happy to note those. Thank you. We move then on to item 6, the minutes. I'll ask Council to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of April 2022 as a true and accurate record. Are the Council agreeing with that? Councillor Condacall.
Mr Mayor, can I vote against them, and can you please note my vote against the minutes? Thank you.
We will be taking a vote, so you'll have opportunity for that. So, just for formality, are members in favour that I sign those minutes? Agreed. Those are agreed. And any objections? Duly noted. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, can it be noted please that I'm abstaining as I've only just received them and I was unfortunately unable to make the full council meeting.
Most certainly, Councillor Phillips. I'm glad to see you back with us today as well. But that point is well. Thank you. That point is well made. Thank you. It's going to be one of those. Item 7, declarations of interest. To receive declarations of personal or prejudicial interest in the matters under consideration pursuant to the Council Procedure Rules. 2B. I'm sure any member who realises that there are any interest to declare will, if necessary, declare them at the appropriate time. Thank you. Moving on. I have one small announcement. I will be making next week in relation to an announcement which has unfortunately been delayed in relation to my mayoral charity, which, as I say, will be done in due course, and hopefully we'll get plenty of support. And no, may have leaked out a little bit, but I'm hoping to keep it under wraps a little bit till we get the full release on it. So that's my announcement. Is there any other announcements? Councillor Wilson.
Actually, Mr Mayor, first of all, congratulations on your appointment. I suspect it will cost me a lot more in Bacardi over the next 12 months. But I just wanted to put on record my thanks to all the staff and officers who conducted the election. It still hasn't been as easy as pre-COVID days, not that I suppose officers would ever call running elections easy, but certainly still as challenging. And whatever the result may have been for individual candidates, I'm sure we would all agree that it was run professionally and with a degree of humour where necessary, and also to all the volunteers who came forward to help out the council, because without them who stepped forward, we would not have democracy. And I think in these days where we can see democracy being challenged, particularly in Ukraine, sometimes we forget how easy it is that these things are under threat and challenged. So I would like to put that on record, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Moving on, we now move to item 9, returning officers' report, to note the report of the Borough Council's elections held on the 5th of May 2022 and as set out in the agenda. So a little bit early there, but it's part of it, I'm sure. Good link. Thank you. Members happy to note that. Item 10 is not required at this point, as Councillor Wilson was already elected leader. So we move on to item 11, the composition and membership of committee scrutiny panels and the appointment to outside bodies for 2021-2022. That should be 2022-23, I'm sure. So I'm sure we'll make amendments in the minutes for that. Right, first of all, to note, the Cabinet. To note the members of Cabinet and the appointment of members to it by the leader. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whilst it is a leader's appointment and doesn't require ratification from Council, I'm happy to confirm that all the Cabinet positions will remain as they were from the previous municipal year. I will retain business and regeneration. Councillor Golby will remain as Deputy Leader and Housing and Communities. Councillor Croft will retain Finance and Corporate. Councillor Markham will retain Public Services. Councillor Smith will keep Planning and Regulation. And Councillor Gutteridge will remain as Health and Environment. And also just to inform Council that I will in due course be making appointments to Cabinet support roles, which will be the subject of a later individual Cabinet member decision once I have confirmed those positions, after we have also done the appointments to the relevant committees tonight, because that also impacts on what committees or Cabinet support positions they may be able to hold. So that will be done in due course, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Is that seconded? Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll second the appointments as listed and reserve my right to speak should it be necessary.
Thank you. We now need to move to a vote on that. All members in favour of the appointments as set out by the leader? And note the report. In favour? Yes. Any against? Any abstentions? Really, something needs to be done with that. Move on to item B, composition of committee and scrutiny panels. To note the following election of councillors, and on today's date, and the composition of the council will be as follows: 27 Conservatives, 5 Labour, 2 Green, and 2 Green Group campaigning for a sustainable borough. And having regard to the political balance, to receive recommendations regarding the number of members on each committee. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move the agenda item as printed. And in so moving, Mr. Mayor, I would like to point out, because there have been accusations on social media that these have been gerrymandered, I would like to put it on the record quite clearly. It has not been gerrymandered. These have been worked out according to law, according to the political proportionality rules, and that I have had no hand whatsoever in who has which seats. It has been worked out by a spreadsheet in accordance with the legislation, and therefore I will move it as according to the legislation provides, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Is that seconded? Councillor Golby?
Thank you, Chair. I'll second that and reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Golby. Sorry, beg your pardon. Freudian slip. Councillor Condacall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know who's going to be more upset about that, but at least it made everyone smile. I'd like to propose an amendment. Councillor Wilson is quite right that the proposal is legal, but there are many legal ways of divvying up the committees that abide by the proportionality rules. And we've had a long tradition when Labour were massive and the Tories were small, that we always had small groups on the planning committee. So I actually moved the amendment, which I think is on a bit of paper, so I hope I don't need to read it out. But the gist of it is I want to increase the planning committee to 12 members from 11 to provide a place for the Green Group on the planning committee without removing any of the other members on the planning committee. So that committee increases by 1. To balance that, I propose that the Greens don't have a place on the appeals panel, which rarely meets, which actually means the Conservatives will gain a seat on the appeals panel and overall increase their number of seats on the council committees by 1. I think this is reasonable. I think my many years of planning experience would be an asset to the planning committee, but it's up to this council to choose how big the planning committee is. Both proposals are actually legal. There are many legal ways of divvying up the seats, but I do hope you consider having a place for the Greens on the planning committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Condacall. Is that seconded? Councillor Wright? Did you wish to speak at this point? Councillor Wright. Just. Okay. Any other proposals? It is a procedural motion, so we will just go straight to the vote. Did you want to, Councillor Wright? I'm mindful that you didn't speak. Did you want to speak now? Yeah, Councillor Golby first. She reserved the right, though, didn't she? Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will not be accepting the amendment on this side. What the amendment amounts to is trying to change the goalposts after you've had the result, and that isn't what we should be doing. At the end of the day, this council resolved that we should have 11 members on the planning committee. If we end up having too many members on the planning committee, it becomes too big and unwieldy. According to the political proportionality rules, the Green Group is only entitled to 5 seats across the different and various committees. I would have thought that the Green Group would want to scrutinise all the different and relevant portfolio holders at the various committees. It would also create an imbalance in the appeals committee by reducing it and making Conservatives even more dominant on that committee. Surely if there was an issue with any member of this authority who would happen to need to go to the Appeals Committee, then they should have the option of a Green member putting their name forward to be able to serve on the Appeals Committee. At the end of the day, Mr Mayor, the only reason that Councillor Condacor had a seat on planning in the last municipal year was because he teamed up with the Independents in an unholy alliance, because they should have actually been Conservatives and didn't have the guts to actually stand down when they went independent and submit themselves to the public say as to whether they agreed with them. He teamed up with them, so they were technically a group of 3. Under the political proportionality rules, that did entitle that group to a seat on planning. Now that the Independent's no longer here and he has another sidekick with him on the Green group, that reduces his councillors on his group to 2. That means, according to the political proportionality rules, he doesn't get a seat on planning. The solution is quite simple, Mr Mayor, if the Greens want another seat on planning. That is to win more seats. Given as we have just had an election, the public have spoken and they don't get their way.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. As it's procedural, we do move straight to the vote on this one. First of all, those in favour of the amendment put by Councillor Condacor. Those against? Any abstentions? That vote is lost. We move to the substantive motion. Those in favour of the substantive motion put by Councillor Wilson. Those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Item C. Membership of committee and scrutiny panels. To receive recommendations and membership of committees and the appointment of chairs. Councillor Wilson, as leader, do you want to move the recommendations?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will move the recommendations as printed, although I suspect that we may have to delegate authority to the Chief Executive in relation to the Green Group's appointment to the Appeals Committee, as that isn't actually printed. So with that amendment, I will move it as printed, subject to the amendment delegating it in agreement with the leader of the Green Group for the appeals seat, if they decide to take it up.
Does that receive a seconder?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll reserve my right to speak also.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. It's unfortunate that at this first meeting my newly elected Green colleague has called a sidekick. I think we should have a bit of decorum and decency in this chamber. I will hopefully appoint someone to the appeals panel soon. One of the issues we had before, when I was on the appeals panel, is we never had any training for it for the year. So I will appoint someone to the appeals committee once we've been trained so that we can sit on it. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Condacor. I'm sure all members will appreciate the decorum of this council chamber and act accordingly. So we now need, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll take no lectures in decorum and how to act in this chamber from Councillor Condacor. I think if people were to watch videos of previous council meetings, his actions speak for themselves, and demanding that a councillor actually resigns from their post on the day they have a miscarriage is hardly showing decorum.
Thank you. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Item D, representatives on outside bodies, to receive recommendations on appointments to outside bodies. Again, Councillor Wilson, as leader of the council, do you wish to move the recommendations?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I will move the recommendations as printed.
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will second the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Anyone wish to speak on those as printed? No, so, do we need to take a vote on that one? We need to take a vote on that also. If members could show their in favour. Against? Any abstentions? Duly noted, thank you. That's carried. Item 12, scheme of delegation. Would the Leader of the Council move to the approval of the scheme of delegation for the functions set out? Sorry, I missed a piece. 12 what? Oh, we. Apologies. Trying to rush through. Appointment of co-opted members. To receive recommendations on the appointment of co-opted members. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sense of déjà vu. I'll be happy to second that, to propose that even, and I'm sure that my loyal sidekick will be more than happy to second that.
Councillor Golby.
For the record, the sidekick will second the recommendations.
Thank you.
And I reserve my right to speak should need to.
Any member? So, need to vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Now we'll move on to the scheme of delegation. Would the Leader of the Council move the approval to the scheme of delegation for the functions as set out in item 12 of the agenda? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe I have to move 12 separately, so I'll move 12A first, Mr Mayor. And I'm reliably informed we may actually have a first act for your mayoral performance because Councillor Golby and I have discovered that she is share to my sonny, so that may be your first mayoral engagement.
I will look forward to hearing the duet at some point, but is that seconded?
Yes, Chair, I don't think anybody else is going to look forward to that duet, but I will second and reserve my right to speak should I need to.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Any other member? Need to take a vote on that. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? That is again carried. Councillor Wilson, item B.
And now for the final act of the evening, Mr Mayor, until your festivities, I would move item 12B as printed.
Councillor Golby.
And I will second. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Condicorn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On the list on page 103, one of the terms of reference, it says buzz shelters. I was under the impression we're not responsible for buzz shelters. We had this big argument at scrutiny, so can I ask that that's removed unless we can confirm that we do actually have any buzz shelters, because the County Council is entirely responsible for them and responsible for their unfortunate removal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condicorn. Just some clarification. I think, in actual fact, the Borough Council did purchase some of these, but I'll seek clarification on that. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think that's actually an incorrect statement from Councillor Condicorn. We do have some shelters which we did purchase alongside the County Council when there was the issue about whether they could still be sustained at the current level. So we do actually own some, and also we do put signage in them from time to time, so it is an accurate reflection of the scheme of delegation and should remain there in my list of responsibilities as portfolio holder.
Thank you. So, no other... Oops, sorry, Councillor Brown.
Mr Mayor, I can confirm that Councillor Wilson is correct. I was chair of the scrutiny panel where that item came forward, and we did agree to purchase bus shelters in collaboration with the County Council.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Brown, and I believe the officers are agreeing with that as well. So, with that identified and clarified, we'll move then to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? No? And no abstentions. That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. That then brings us to say the conclusion of our formal business of annual council, and I would now say thank you all for attending and close the meeting, and as I say, thank you again for your attendance, and I'm sure we'll have some chats following this meeting. I think the officer just needs to clarify who's staying and going at this point, but thank you again. The meeting is now closed.